This program is powered by AIM Employers Association and Ogletree Deacons, a Feature Group USA production.
Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association. Approximately 3,200 unionized workers began striking after rejecting Boeing's revised four-year labor contract affecting three Midwest facilities. What does this say about unions, associations, and the state of HR management? Strap in. Burt and I are about to get fired up.
Welcome to This Week at Work, the only show to pack workplace news, practical HR solutions, and timely insights into every 30-minute episode. From the latest rulings in the courtroom to the strategies unfolding in the boardroom, and from real conversations taking place on the front lines to spotlighting what similar companies are doing about the challenges they face. This Week at Work brings you the conversations that matter most to HR professionals and business leaders like you. Brought to you by AIM Employers Association and Ogletree Deacons, live every Thursday morning. This is your opportunity to connect with their experts and ask your burning questions. So what's keeping you up at night? Let's face it together now on This Week at Work.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. We're happy to be here. Burt, there is a lot of things going on. I'm down at the Missouri State SHRM conference down at Lake of the Ozarks, and we're having a really good time here. I'm seeing representation from Ogletree. You're always strong at this conference. You got your friends Jim Paul here and Melissa, who is a friend of the show and a big part of what AIM does when you're not available. I won't tell you what she said completely, Burt, but she did say something about, yeah, Burt likes to pass off some of that work to me when it's not right for him. But somehow maybe you want to circle back and just make sure you haven't hurt Melissa's feelings by asking her to step in for you when you guys are dividing out responsibilities there.
It's only when I'm not available, not when I don't feel that it's right for me.
I know it's not available. That's what I told her. I said, I'm sure it's because he's not available. But
exactly.
She was being playful. Her point was, why don't you just come straight to me and not to Burt? And we take it from there. So You got some competition, but you know, you're our guy, so we're going to stay with you.
I appreciate that, Phil. I really do.
Yeah. But the conference is going well down here. For us is a conference month. We go from here, we go to Indianapolis, we have a Central Illinois conference, we go to Florida all in the month of August. It's a really busy time for us. But there's something a little bit bigger going on locally than just the state SHRM conference, and that's the Boeing strike. It's been a long time since that organization's been on strike, and if anyone isn't familiar with it, it's part of the Boeing defense systems here in St. Louis. There's three locations around the region that are on strike. And I don't know if you know anything about that, Burt, or heard anything about it.
Well, I'm actually at a client site right now out of town, and it's not Boeing, but I cannot comment much on what's going on with the Boeing strike for confidentiality reasons.
Yeah, well, we won't push you.
Thank you.
I would just I do want to get into talking about some of the things that we should look for as employers. Just a good reminder of, what are the signs, the signals, what are the workplace cultural behaviors that sometimes trigger union activity. I'd like to maybe get into that right after Lawyer on the Clock. How do you feel about that?
Sure, that sounds good.
Wait a second. Is there Superman? Did Clark Kent just take off his glasses?
Oh yeah, I saw that. It was the kind of that. Let's do it. Yeah,
Clark Kent.
Like I said, I'm at a client site. I'm on a much smaller monitor today. I've got to pull the readers out from time to time. Hey, they'll be back on later.
I got mine on as well today for the same reason.
Yep.
All right, Nick, are you ready to pull that lever? Let's give it a go.
Curious about a case that could wreck your workplace? Lucky for you, we have a lawyer on the clock.
All right. So the first one I'm going to talk about, we'll talk a little bit about the EEOC and a little bit about the NLRB. So on July 31st, a week ago, the U.S. Senate confirmed Andrea R. Lucas to serve a second term on the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission by a vote of 52 to 45. Commissioner Lucas has already been on the board at the EEOC for a term, as I said, and she has been the acting chair of the EEOC. Interestingly, right now, the EEOC only has two members. That's Andrea Lucas, a Trump appointee, and Kalpana Kotagal, who is a Biden appointee. And that means there's three empty seats at the EEOC right now, which means the EEOC doesn't even have a quorum.
So what happens in that case? I'm just curious. Yeah. So like, this is what I've been appointed to do. This is what I do. I'm assuming this is a full-time appointment. So if there's not a quorum and you're missing 3 of the 5, mm-hmm. What do you do I mean, are you doing anything? Do you have any insight? What's going on?
Sure. They're still pursuing the EEOC's agenda, including Andrea R. Lucas's agenda. But the ability of the commission to really get anything done it remains limited without a quorum at the EEOC. And so it's sort of like status quo. Out in the field, there's what this would mean for employers is the cases will continue to proceed through investigation. Right to sue letters will be issued. EEOC will take a handful of cases on their own and sue in their own name. It's just kind of status quo, but anything major, like major changes to the Trump, like implementing the Trump agenda until he gets a quorum. Right. Yeah, until he gets a quorum. So you're not going to see anything dramatic changing at the EEOC until there's a quorum of one more person who gets confirmed. And so the Senate Labor Panel did advance to through committee for a full floor vote nominee Brittany Panuccio, and it was a party line 12-11 vote. She is the Florida Assistant U.S. Attorney. She has been nominated to serve on the EEOC, and that would give Republicans a 2-1 majority and allow the EEOC to move forward with the Trump-aligned agenda. Now, interestingly, she did not get confirmed before the Senate recess, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I want to shift gears and talk about the NLRB. Right now, just like the EEOC, there are only 2 members of the National Labor Relations Board. That means there are 3 vacant seats. There's a Trump appointee and a Biden appointee at the board right now. So the board also does not have a quorum. And so as long as there is no quorum, there's, again, an inability for Trump to really pursue his agenda through those 2 significant agencies. As of right now, there's about 140 Trump nominees awaiting a vote, including ambassadors, including federal judges, members of the EEOC, commissioners at the EEOC, members of the NLRB, Department of Labor nominees. So because those nominees did not get through before the recess, those remaining administration officials that Trump is hoping to get installed will have to wait until at least September. The Senate has adjourned until September 2nd. So we've got, a little less than a month before the Senate gets back in, and I would expect to see the Republicans making a full press to get their nominees through. So again, kind of status quo right now, Phil, for the EEOC and the NLRB, and to some extent the Department of Labor.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was like my days when I was working in the coal industry, and if the crew didn't show up, the entire crew, you couldn't go underground, right? You had to have a certain number of people, a certain number of roles, much like what we're talking about here. And therefore, everyone got a chance to go home with pay if someone was absent for the day.
Yep.
And so I wasn't sure what they were doing. Yeah.
they still continue to operate, like I said, just kind of status quo, not really actively pursuing Biden's agenda, not really actively pursuing Trump's agenda, just kind of doing their basic tasks.
Perfect. What else you got there, Barton?
So I wanted to also mention for all of our Illinois listeners and viewers that Illinois is going to be requiring nursing breaks to be paid. Illinois legally required break time for employees to express breast milk for nursing infants previously under a bill that's effective January 1, 2026. That time must now be paid. It sounds simple enough, but I would expect probably, Phil, that there will be some sort of litigation over this because the amendment to the law, so it amends 820 ILCS 260/10, which is called break time for nursing mothers. The language that's been added says an employer shall compensate the employee during the break time at the employee's regular rate of compensation. An employer shall not require the employee to use paid leave during the break time or reduce the employee's compensation during the break time in any other manner. But here's the tough part, is it says an employer shall provide, and they've inserted the word paid into the statute, an employer shall provide paid reasonable break time as needed by the employee, unless to do so would create an undue hardship as defined elsewhere in the statute. So again, once you get into terms like reasonable break time and undue hardship, that's where litigation takes place. And so,
Right.
Is 5 minutes sufficient? Is a half an hour reasonable? And so I expect there will be some litigation around that eventually. But Illinois employers, beware that nursing mothers who are in the workplace will be entitled to paid break time to express.
Yeah, and just I can relate a little bit to this in today's real-time world. We have an explosion of children at the Brandt family farm, if you want to call it that, right? We have nursing mothers, my daughter and daughter-in-laws, and at this point, what I know, and as I'm learning as I go through this journey, Burt, as a grandfather, is like it's not the same amount of time for everybody, and that's what's going to make it really difficult, right? It's for one, it may be 5 minutes. For another, it might be 30 minutes, and I think we're going to have to consider that. One of the other questions I have that comes to mind is this in addition to my normal break?
Yeah, it's the statute is actually silent on that, whether it's additional time, but it does say that the break time may run concurrently with any break time already provided to the employee, but that's permissive. It may run concurrently.
Right. Because I'm thinking about, you have to provide a facility and all these things that we comply with today, now the time, and it's paid. And then, you still got to eat and take care of the individual and make sure they're going to be safe on the job as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have time for one more, Phil?
We do. Bring it
on. All right. I'm going to stay over in the Illinois area and talk about a interesting case. We've kind of been following this on the program. And just in the last day or so, the Seventh Circuit, which covers Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, the Seventh Circuit revived an ex-teacher's lawsuit over using trans student names. And we've talked about this on the program a lot because this is definitely heading for a Supreme Court fight. So in this situation, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals reinstated a religious bias suit from a Christian teacher who alleged that a school district unlawfully required him to refer to transgender students by their preferred names. And so he sued, and he lost at the district court level. The appellate court reinstated the case in a 2-1 decision. And I think, again, just what this shows is that there is a conflict that's going to end up at the Supreme Court on how employers are supposed to balance employees' religious rights with other employees' gender or sexual orientation rights under Title VII. And really, really a difficult issue. It's really probably one of the hardest areas to navigate. I will say that fortunately, most employers don't have to deal with this because transgender employees or transgender people don't make up a significant part of the workforce, but that doesn't mean that it's not an important issue to some employers. Again, I'm not making commentary one way or the other on the importance of it. I just know that some employers think it's an important issue, others do not. In this particular case, the employee, the teacher, sued and said that he refused to call transgender students by names that conflicted with their biological sex because he believed that being transgender was a sin. And so, again, it's going to be a really tough issue on balancing those religious rights of people who believe that that's a sin. And I do think someday it might even go further than religious rights, that if people just believe it's immoral or against their beliefs, that there's an argument for expansion there, that it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to religion, but then trying to balance that with people's transgender and sexual orientation rights that the Supreme Court has already said are covered by Title VII. Very, very difficult issue for all of us.
No, that's one definitely to keep our eye on. And while I agree with you, I don't know that every employer is dealing with this situation. I think every employer easily can wake up and find themselves in this spot. I know in my experience as an HR professional, in more than a few cases, we've had no awareness of transgender employees or anyone that's in the process of evolving that. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you have requests and things have changed overnight and you're not ready. You haven't talked about it as a leadership team because it's really a complicated conversation to have, and your workforce is not ready, and all of a sudden you're scrambling. So I do think this will be interesting to watch. I wonder if it will have legs and even expand into he, she, they type pronouns that get used in and around the workplace so easily and freely. Today, we don't make a lot of it, but they are still very common.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because in this case, that was one of the issues, that the teacher refused to use the preferred pronouns. The transgender student said that part of their emotional distress from the teacher of not using the gendered, what they call honorifics, with them, that he used with other students, using incorrect honorifics or just avoiding calling them on class. They said that those facts are disputed. And so the teacher apparently was calling them by their last name, wouldn't use their preferred pronouns, and that caused the students apparently some emotional distress. But it's whether it really comes down to creating an undue hardship on the school district in accommodating that instructor's religious beliefs. And so again, it's really a tough issue. That's all I can say about it. We have to navigate ourselves through this. We know that under the Trump administration, that at least the EEOC and the federal government is going to be receptive to the religious aspect of this. And if and when it switches back to a Democratic administration, that pendulum will swing wildly the other way.
Yeah, no, it's and what we're looking for is some consistency, is what we always say. We'll settle in. Let's just get some consistency here. But this one we'll keep an eye on. I agree with you. I think that one's going to eventually make its way up to the highest levels of the court system, and we'll see what the Supreme Court has to say when it gets there.
Exactly.
Anything else, Burt?
I think that's probably enough for today, Phil. I've taken up way more than my 6 minutes of time. Well, you're gonna get a.
But I
know
that's how you are as a lawyer.
One.
When I'm working with you, I know I'm always I'm going, hey, if we exceeded 6 minutes, you're like, don't you worry about it. So anyway, that's great. Let's move on and talk about unionization activity. This isn't something we always talk about. It's not as prevalent as it has been over the years. It's definitely changing. And then when we see big organizations, we saw this a couple years ago when the automotive companies were going on strike, and now we're seeing an aerospace company like Boeing go on strike in their defense units here. But there's still that opportunity. If you're an employer, you don't have a union, there's important things to pay attention to, right? There's signals and signs. And I think most employers would agree that they don't want the interference of a union in their business. And they want to do the right things, but there are things to look at and consider as potential warning signs, even if a union isn't lurking, but they serve as invitations to a conversation that then get out of control. And before you know it, you're charging them by the minute, Burt, and and they're needing help, and it gets very costly. It's very disruptive. It gets emotional for people, and anyone that's been through a union campaign would tell you it's one of the worst things that you really have to do in business, because it's so argumentative and it's so passionate with opinions in one side or another, and there are much better ways to go forward. So let's just talk a little bit about some of our experience, Burt, on what are the signs that people should be aware of when it comes to creating an environment that would be ripe to invite a union to a conversation, right, with your employees. And the first one that I would throw out there in my experience, I've seen it time and time again. It's when the workplace, and we see this particularly with hiring today. It's difficult to hire, and then you have a high level of required or forced or mandatory overtime, where people are not having that balance of work life. Maybe overtime's being required or forced in an unfair way. Unfair can be interpreted by many people different ways. But it's a constant no time off. I'm missing my kids' ball games. I'm working every Saturday and Sunday, and my employer is really not giving me a voice in that and not giving me the time off that I need. I know that's always been a hot topic, if you're in a high overtime situation, to be aware. I don't know if you've experienced that or you would add something else to the list.
No, I think overtime is a big one. I think typically, Phil, the way I break it down is you sort of need to look both at what I would call the external risk and the internal risks or vulnerabilities, either one. And overtime is definitely one of those issues, an internal vulnerability or risk. And overtime is really a double-edged sword for employers and employees. There are some employees who absolutely positively love the overtime. They want to work it as much as possible. And if they don't get assigned overtime, or they think the assignment of overtime is unfair, they're going to get disgruntled. The flip side of it is that you have other employees who absolutely positively do not want to work overtime. They want their time off to remain time off, to be family time or time to do whatever they want to do on their own without having to think about work. And the extra compensation really doesn't motivate them at all. And again, if they're being forced to work overtime, or again, if they see that the overtime is being assigned unfairly or inequitably, they're going to be disgruntled. And so overtime, again, you need to be careful about that one. The other thing I will say is, with respect to overtime, you want to make sure you're not always overworking your best employees.
And that's what happens often, right? Yeah. That's exactly what happens. And it starts out with, hey, they're volunteering, they're happy to do it. We're happy for them to do it. But it's that unfairness that settles in, that then creates a rub for people. And it then goes beyond overtime, right? It's really as it relates to policies that get exhausted, if you will. They're constantly being used. We're putting a shift. Well, that's what the policy says, or we administrated the policy incorrectly. A supervisor offered it to the wrong person, and that person got the hours I was supposed to get, or didn't get the hours they were supposed to get, and now you got to make it up to me. And then all of a sudden, you just have this environment where people aren't happy. And then if you look at the external factors in a scenario like that, what do you see? You see Boeing's on strike, or you see the autos are on strike, or there's pickets going on down the road, and you hear the unfairness that might be occurring there through the media, your channel of friends, communications, just being in the community. And the next thing you know, your employees are talking to somebody that you'd really rather them talk to you for versus, taking it to, a third party representation conversation. And now you got everything from under the NLRB and headaches to follow to stay hopefully union free if that's their objective.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it boils down from a business perspective, Phil, that, there's a lot of research on the topic. Most of the research that I have read says that operating in a unionized environment typically increases costs by anywhere from 10 to about 50%, with most of it being in about that 30% area. Again, the statistics kind of vary wildly, but what the statistics don't show is that it's less expensive to operate in a union environment. It's always more expensive. It's just a measure of how much.
How much?
And, and so again, anywhere from maybe 10 to 50%. But it adds complication for management when there's a union in place, when there's a third party there that's representing the employees. And so it's a difficult situation for any business to have to go through a union organizing campaign. And I would say it's probably even more difficult if a union's already there and you ultimately end up in a strike situation.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the reasons why our association is always encouraging employers. Some that say, "Oh, we're not really into doing employee opinion surveys." Like, that's a really good way of kind of keeping the pulse on the workplace culture, and hearing the voice of employees. Because if you see a shift in your survey results from one year to another, we're always looking for that positive shift. But I've seen it, you've seen it, where this happens very quickly. It presents itself over the course of a month or two, and you go from, "Oh, we thought our workplace was okay," to, "Wow, we have some real problems here."
Mm-hmm.
And surveys, employee opinion surveys, can really help identify those factors where you can see small shades of differences and help cut off some avoidance.
You mentioned, Phil, the speed with which the attitude at work can change. I think that is a significant factor there. It only takes a handful of disgruntled employees to really make some waves. And if they start talking to a union and get professional organizers from the union assisting them, things can change really rapidly.
Yeah. And I know you have a hard stop on our clock, so we're going to keep an eye on that. But I do want to mention one other. These are just some of the more common ones. It's, your safety performance, right? If all of a sudden your safety performance has taken a turn for the worse, or you have some high profile accidents where there's severe accidents that occur, hopefully not. But when that happens, that sometimes can create, again, another opportunity for emotions to get involved and things get a little bit out of control. And then finally, it's when our supervisors, and this is probably the biggest, I'm seeing your smile.
I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
When our supervisors aren't trained and they're treating people differently, not even intentionally, just because they don't have the skill to do that. So, that formula for me is we have to be doing employee opinion surveys. We need to be training our supervisors and managers for that. And we have to have the conversation that what is going on externally, as you mentioned. So this is happening down the road. This is in our community. This is on the news. Our employees are seeing that, and they're wanting, "Hey, I'm going to get Boeing's going on strike, and the union is saying 20%, management saying 40%, but I got 3.5% last year." I'm sitting here going, wait a minute, what's wrong with me? Why don't I get my share?
Right.
And in today's environment, that's what employers, or I think employees are looking at. And those would be the things I would suggest people keep an eye on. If you need any assistance, Burt and I are always happy to help in that space. And it's more about avoidance than it is having a union avoidance campaign. We can always prevent it. All right. Anything else from you, Burt?
Nope. It as we've often talked, Phil, it all boils down to supervision and communication.
Yeah, it happens every time. All right. Well, I know we'll be back here next week at 7:30 Central Time, Burt. I know you got some good things to do on your trip out there, so go get it done and do your best. I know you always do. Until then, let's go out and be good somebody. Bye-bye.
Level up your HR game with an AIM Employers Association membership. Get 24/7 expert support, exclusive training, and a network of peers. Join thousands of HR leaders building better organizations. Call AIM at 800-948-5700 or visit aimea.org today to learn about becoming a member. Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please like it, share it, and make sure it's on your calendar every week. Ask your burning questions anytime and let us know what topics you'd like us to cover. Just go to hrask.org and be sure to leave a review wherever you catch our show to help other HR pros find us as well. We'll see you next week when we discuss what's happening this week at work.